The crystal flute in my father's hand caught the light of the chandeliers, sending a prism of fractured rainbows across the tablecloth. I looked regal, standing at the head of the table in a rented tuxedo that fit him better than his own skin. This was the rehearsal dinner for my brother Ryan's wedding. A production that cost more than my first year of college tuition? My father, Mark, raised his glass. His voice was smooth, practiced, the kind of voice that sold insurance policies to people who couldn't afford them. To my son, Ryan, he said, beaming, and to his beautiful bride, Emily, your mother and I have decided that a new family needs a strong foundation. That is why, as of tomorrow morning, we are signing over the deed to the family estate to you. We are gifting you the house. The room erupted. Applause. Gasps. The clinking of silverware. My brother Ryan, the golden boy, looked appropriately humbled, wiping a fake tear from his eye. My father wasn't finished. He turned his gaze toward me. It wasn't a warm look. It was the look a gardener gives a weed. And Nicole, he added, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. We know you have chosen a separate path, a more solitary life, so we felt this asset belongs with the child who stayed loyal, who stayed close to the heart of this family. The applause started again, louder this time, fueled by expensive champagne and the collective relief that they weren't the ones being publicly disinherited. I didn't look down. I didn't blush. I smiled. It was the same smile I wore when I found a discrepancy in a corporate ledger. Stop scrolling for a second. Drop a yes in the comments if you have ever felt like the black sheep of your family just for being the honest one. I want to see who is here with me. I waited for the applause to die down. I waited until the silence was heavy. Expectant. I picked up my water glass, took a slow sip, and set it back down with a deliberate click that echoed in the sudden quiet. Does the transfer include the $350,000 in hidden tax liens? I asked. My voice was level, conversational, as if I were asking if the chicken contained gluten. Or are you hoping Emily's father pays that off before he checks the title? The silence that followed wasn't just quiet. It was a vacuum. It sucked the air right out of the room. Forks froze halfway to mouths. The smile on my father's face didn't drop. It twitched. A glitch in the matrix. Ryan laughed. A sharp, nervous bark. She is drunk, he said, waving a hand at me. Ignore her. She has had too much wine. I stood up. I hadn't touched the wine. I was the most sober person in the room. I wasn't doing this because I was jealous. That is what they would say later. Of course. They would say I was bitter. They would say I was envious of Ryan's happiness, of his success, of his golden status. But jealousy requires you to want what the other person has. And I didn't want their life. I just wanted the books to balance. Psychologists have a term for siblings like me. They call us glass children. We are the ones born healthy while a sibling is sick. Or in my case, we are the ones born competent while a sibling is special. We aren't made of glass because we are fragile. We are made of glass because our parents look right through us to see the child they actually care about. For 32 years, I was invisible. When I got straight A's, my parents nodded absently and asked if I had helped Ryan with his homework. When I made captain of the debate team, they missed the finals because Ryan had a minor league tryout. I wasn't a daughter. I was a background character in the Ryan show. But here's the thing about being invisible. You learn to watch. You learn to observe things that people think are hidden. While they were busy polishing Ryan's ego, I was learning how the world actually worked. I learned that love in this house was transactional. I learned that affection was a currency. And I was always overdrawn. So I stopped trying to earn it. I turned my invisibility into a career. I became a forensic accountant. I get paid to find the lies buried in numbers. I get paid to look at a perfect, happy company and see the rot underneath. My father thought he was dismissing me with that toast. He thought he was putting me in my place. But he forgot that when you treat your daughter like an employee, she eventually audits you. And I had been auditing them for weeks. This wasn't an emotional outburst. This wasn't a tantrum. This was a closing statement. My father tried to pivot. He turned to Emily's father, a serious man named David, who made his money in commercial real estate and didn't suffer fools. Mark laughed. A hollow sound. You know how siblings are? David. Always trying to roast each other. Nicole has a vivid imagination. Does she? David asked. He didn't look at my father. He looked at me. I reached into my tote bag. I didn't bring a gift. I brought a file. A thick, manila folder that contained the autopsy of my family's financial life. I tossed it onto the center of the table. It landed with a heavy thud, sliding across the silk runner and knocking over a vase of white hydrangeas. Water spilled across the table, soaking into the linen. But the plastic cover of my report stayed dry. 3 weeks ago, I said, keeping my eyes on Emily. My firm was running a standard background check on a client who happened to be in Dad's country club circle. His name popped up on a cross-reference list for distressed assets. I saw my mother, Lisa. Gopala. She reached for her wine glass, her hand trembling so hard the liquid danced. Nicole, stop this, she hissed. Not now. I ignored her. I looked at the bride. I was curious. So I dug deeper. I continued. I pulled the county records. Public information. By the way, anyone with an internet connection and $20 can find it? I found the $350,000 in unpaid property taxes, dating back 4 years. But that wasn't the interesting part. I walked around the table, moving slowly, circling them like a shark. The interesting part was the home equity line of credit. The HELOC. Dad took it out in 2018. He maxed it out. $700,000. He spent it on cars, vacations, and that country club membership. He needs to feel important. Liar Ryan slammed his hand on the table. The house is paid off. They told me it was paid off. I looked at my brother. He was 29 years old, wearing a $3,000 watch he didn't pay for, about to marry a woman whose father was going to bankroll his life. He was a child in a man's costume. They lied. Ryan, I said softly, there is no equity. The house is underwater. They owe more than it is worth. I pointed to the folder. And this gift, this generous transfer of the deed, it is not a gift. It is a liability dump. The way they structured the transfer? The moment you sign that paper, you assume full responsibility for the liens. They are not giving you a house. They are giving you their debt so they can file for bankruptcy in Florida and keep their retirement accounts untouched. My father stood up, his face turning a dangerous shade of purple. You ungrateful little wretch. He spat. After everything we have done for you, you have done nothing for me. I corrected him. I paid for my own college. I paid for my own car. I paid for my own apartment. You didn't even co-sign my lease. You saved all your resources for Ryan. And now, you are trying to eat him to save yourselves. I looked at the guests. They were silent, horrified, fascinated. This is a concept in sociology called financial infidelity. I said, switching into my professional voice. It is when family members lie to each other about money to maintain control or appearance. But this is specific. This is a generational wealth scam. I pulled out my tablet and tapped the screen. I had connected it to the room's projector system earlier. Telling the event coordinator, I had a slideshow of childhood photos. Instead of cute baby pictures, a spreadsheet appeared on the wall behind the head table. Columns of red numbers, dates, interest rates. You see, I said, pointing to the screen, Mark and Lisa view their children as assets. I was the low-yield bond reliable. Boring. Ignored. Ryan was the high-risk stock. They poured everything into him: private schools, camps, cars expecting a high return. They expected him to marry rich and bail them out. I turned to Emily. They are not gifting you a home. Emily, they are inducting you into a Ponzi scheme. They need your father's money to service the debt on a lifestyle they haven't been able to afford since 2010. Emily looked at her father. David was reading the documents in the folder, flipping pages with a wet finger. He stopped at a page. Read it twice. And then close the folder. He looked at my father. Is this true? David asked. The tax liens. It is a misunderstanding. My father stammered. A cash flow issue. We were going to handle it. With whose money? David asked. My daughter's. Ryan stood up. He looked frantic. He looked at the screen. Then at the folder. Then at our parents. Wait, he said. His voice was high. Cracking. Wait a second. You said there was equity. You said the house was appraised at 1.5 million. You said if I took the house, I would have assets. I watched him. This was the moment. This was the moment where a normal brother, a brother who loved his family, would be hurt that his parents lied. He would be hurt that they tried to trap him. But Ryan wasn't hurt. He was angry. And he wasn't angry about the lie. He was angry about the math. I don't care about the taxes, Ryan shouted. I can pay the taxes. But the equity, where is the equity? I needed that equity. I frowned. Why would he need the equity so badly? He was supposed to be living in the house, not selling it. And then it clicked. The sunk cost fallacy. Ryan had spent his whole life being the golden child. He had invested everything, his personality, his lack of career, his entire self-worth into the idea that he was the heir. He had sunk 29 years into being the prince. If the kingdom was fake, then he was nobody. And Ryan would rather be the king of a burning castle than admit he was just a pauper in a tuxedo. He turned to me. His face twisted. You are lying. He screamed at me. You are just trying to sabotage me because you are miserable, Dad. Tell her she is lying. Tell her there is still money in the house. My father didn't answer. He was too busy trying to stare down David. Ryan, I said, my voice cutting through his panic. Why are you so worried about the equity? You are moving in. Right, you are raising a family there. The value shouldn't matter unless you were planning to leverage it. Ryan froze. I swiped the screen on my tablet. The spreadsheet disappeared. A new document appeared. It was an email chain. I admit. I said, I didn't find this in the public records. I found this because Ryan uses the same password for his email that he used for his Netflix account, which I am still paying for. By the way, the emails were dated 3 days ago. They were between Ryan and a hard money lender in Chicago. Subject: bridge loan. Collateral: Dodici, Oak Street. I read the email aloud. As soon as the deed is in my name, I need the loan funded within 24 hours. $200,000. Cash out. The room gasped. Emily covered her mouth. Ryan, she whispered. You were going to take a loan against the house. Before we even moved in. I looked at my brother. The snake was eating the snake. He wasn't a victim. He was just a competitor. My parents were trying to trap him with debt to save themselves. And he was trying to use their gift to defraud a lender to pay off. What? I tapped the screen again. A gambling site login. Crypto, I said. Or rather, a scam coin that went to zero last week. You lost it all. Didn't you? Ryan, you were going to take the house, strip the equity, and gamble it again to try and win it back. You were going to leave Emily with the mortgage, the tax liens, and a foreclosed home. Ryan collapsed into his chair. He put his head in his hands. My mother started crying. Not the soft, delicate tears she used to get her way. These were ugly, heaving sobs. We are a family, she wailed. Why are you doing this to us? I looked at them. The three of them. A trifecta of greed and incompetence. We are not a family. I said, we are a failed corporation, and I am liquidating my shares. David stood up. He placed a hand on Emily's shoulder. Get your purse. Emily, he said. Daddy. No. Emily sobbed. Emily. Look at them, David said, his voice hard. Look at what they almost did to you. This isn't a marriage. It is a crime scene. We are leaving. He didn't wait for an answer. He started walking toward the door. Emily hesitated for a second, looking at Ryan. Ryan didn't look up. He was muttering to himself. Something about odds and market corrections. Emily took off the engagement ring. It was probably a fake diamond anyway. She dropped it on the table next to the wet file folder. Then she turned and ran after her father. The room was dissolving. Guests were whispering, grabbing their purses, signaling the waiters for the check even though the dinner was supposed to be hosted. My father turned to me. His face was gray. "You destroyed us," he whispered. "You destroyed everything." "No." "Dad," I said. "I just turned on the lights." The cockroaches were already there. I picked up my tablet. I put it back in my bag. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt light. Weightless. I walked toward the exit. The air outside was cool and smelled of rain. Aunt Sarah was leaning against her beat-up Honda Civic, smoking a cigarette. She was my father's sister. The one who had been banned from family gatherings 10 years ago for telling my mother to stop spending money she didn't have. She blew a plume of smoke into the night air. "That was surgical," she said. I leaned against the car next to her. My hands were shaking. "Just a little. I feel sick," he admitted. "That is the detox," Sarah said. "It hurts when the poison leaves the body. But you will survive." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. A text from Mom times, "How could you? You are dead to me." A text from Ryan, "I hope you die alone." I didn't reply. I didn't block them. That would require effort. Instead, I went to my contacts. I selected Mark. Delete. I selected Lisa. Delete. I selected Ryan. Delete. I looked at the empty screen. It glowed in the darkness. A blank slate. I looked at Sarah. "You want to go get a burger?" I asked. Sarah smiled. It was a real smile. Crooked and honest. "I am buying," she said. Emily took off the engagement ring. It was probably a fake diamond anyway. She dropped it on the table next to the wet file folder. Then she turned and ran after her father,